Yo, mi gente. Now do you believe me when I say that boxing is a poor man's sport?
Welcome back to VicSznTV.
Make sure to hit that like button, but I want to start by saying this. Previously, I made a video about Manny Pacquiao's son outside of marriage. The son he had outside of marriage, right? And I said that, listen, a lot of, the best fighters come from humble beginnings. And when I said that, I didn't say that you can't be rich and successful as a boxer, but majority of the legends had extremely humble beginnings, had a poor beginning of their career. When you even look at Manny Pacquiao, he was sleeping in the streets, he was sleeping in the gyms, he had to leave his dad because they was hungry and they ended up cooking their dog and ate it. You know what I'm saying? So that right there kind of fills in the willingness to win that you need to have to step into that ring. Everybody can have a skill. You could work hard and build skill and IQ. But one thing you can't teach so much is the willingness to win. That's something that just comes from right here. A lot of times is influenced from what you went through growing up, knowing that you have a lot to fight for. So when I made that video about Manny Pacquiao's son outside of marriage, there was a few comments that said, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. There's people that are rich all the time and that they're successful in their careers." But it's never like the fighters that come from humble beginnings. And here's a perfect example. Manny Pacquiao's son through marriage had his debut fight, his debut pro fight, where many considered to be underwhelming according to who his father is, the legendary Manny Pacquiao, which is a tough, is a tough standard to meet because your dad is such a legend. People expect so much of you. But, the outcome was a draw and people expected much more. And I truly don't believe it has so much to do with lack of hard work or anything like that. I think a lot of it just has to do with possibly the willingness to win, right? Where his son is undefeated right now. I'm not mistaken. He's like 6-0. I could be wrong. 4-6-0, something like that. I haven't been following so much. But what I will say is that he's been on a streak right now. And I'm talking about his son that's out of marriage. From out of marriage. So now that we're looking at his son through marriage, you could see that there might be a willingness to win that's absent probably because he doesn't feel like he has anything to fight for. We're talking about, the family being extremely rich. Not just rich. They rich. You know what I'm saying? And when you're that rich and you're coming up in the sport of boxing, there might be certain times where you don't push yourself to your limits. You don't think like that because you have everything you ever wanted or ever needed already taken care of. While the other person, his brother, from, out of marriage, has so much more to work for. In his mind, he's saying, I got to get my mom out of this situation. I got to get myself out of this situation. We got to put food on the table. They fighting each match and they're probably not getting a lot of money for each pro fight. But he needs to depend on that money to help, better his situation. While Manny Pacquiao's son don't need the money. You know what I'm saying? Win or lose, it is what it is. Even when you look at the draw, they're back in the locker room. And he still seems a little too happy, in my opinion, when you look at Manny Pacquiao's son. Obviously, he might be, he might be a little disappointed that he got the draw. But he didn't seem like, it just seemed like it was too friendly inside of there. And I get it. You don't want to put so much stress on the fighter after the fight, whatever the case is. But a lot of times when a fighter has a draw or maybe even loses, they just like, I don't want to talk to nobody. I got to go back to that dark place. Starting your first fight having a draw should tell you guys a lot because your first fight is always against a much easier type of opponent. They're not going to match up Manny Pacquiao's son to fight a hard challenge. Do you see what I'm saying? They're not going to match him up to fight somebody extremely challenging. because they want to make sure he looks good, and they also want to build him the right way. They don't want to just throw him in there with the wolves and the lions. So that goes to show you right there. Having a draw in your first fight is one of those things that's like, I'm not saying some people go through draws and some people lose and come back in their debuts, right? But in this situation, it's a little different because a lot of those other fighters are able to come back due to their circumstance, due to have nothing to lose. They gotta go all in. They have to go, because if not, the hopes of their future and their family and the hunger, everything just goes down the drain. They can't take care of anything. So they're putting blood, sweat, and tears, literally. While I believe someone like Manny Pacquiao, just, his son, just might be only putting in sweat. You know what I'm saying? I'm not convinced that Jimuel Pacquiao, and shout out to him because this is a dangerous sport to be a part of. He don't have to do this. So I honor the fact that he wants to follow in his father's footsteps and not, necessarily cutting corners. He's went through the pro fights, you know what I'm saying? And he made his debut as a professional. It's a little different from amateurs now. And I think what we seen here was an absence of blood and tears. I think the sweat got him to draw. But I think if he had put in that blood and tears in the training camp, if he felt like he needed to do that, he would have dominated in a whole different type of performance. When we see Pacquiao's son, his other son that, he didn't quite claim in the beginning of his life, you could see that there's blood, sweat, and tears going on. You could see that there's blood, sweat, and tears during his process. You could see it when he fights. Of course, there's still things to work on, but you could see it like he wants it. He's putting the blood, sweat, and tears. We can't question that. He put the tears in because he haven't got connected with his dad. That's something to tear up about. Being abandoned from your dad. That's where the tears come in. That's something he's fighting for. Damn, I want to build my connection with my pops. The blood. The sacrifice he had to make, not having a father figure and being the man of the house. At first, from the stories I heard, being abused from his first stepfather. Then his second stepfather comes in and puts him into training and stuff like that. But now, you're damn near carrying your own weight a lot of times in this situation. So you got to put the blood in. You know what I'm saying? The sweat came naturally. The sweat comes naturally. He's sweating because he's going through the blood and the tears, man. Jimuel Pacquiao, I just fully believe that he doesn't have a reason to bleed. He doesn't have a reason to be sad. He has a great situation ahead of him. He just had a son. I just feel like it's okay to say no to boxing. It's okay to, I love my pops. I want to live in his footsteps, but I got a son now. Why risk getting CTE, right? Where people that fight is to be able to take care of their family. You came into this knowing and acknowledging that your family is already set for life. I think a lot of doubt runs through a person's head when they step into that ring and start getting hit a few times across the head, and you start wondering, is this something I truly want to do? Now, I still wish Jimuel Pacquiao a great, successful career and a healthy career. But if you're not going to be all the way in it, please step away from the sport of boxing, because there's other things you could contribute. There's other things you could do. There's other things you could do in boxing. You got the biggest voice on your side in your father that could put the word in for you to get involved in damn near probably anything you want to get involved in that's tied to boxing. But don't put yourself in a situation like that. Now, his other son has something to fight for. He's the hungry one. He went through the jungle. You know what I'm saying? And he's still climbing through the jungle without the proper support he deserves. But he said, fuck that. I'm going to take it. And even when you see him look at his father, Pacquiao, he don't feel no type of way. He still hugs his dad. He said, I love you. He still wants to build that connection. And he still goes hard. It don't seem like he's making any excuses for how he wants his situation to turn out. That being said, man, like I said, I hope that, Jimuel Pacquiao, I think that's his name, Jimuel Pacquiao, has a healthy, safe career. He's going to keep it up. He might change. Things might just turn around. But I would rather much him be able to raise his son where he don't have to worry about these things that boxers that come from nothing have no choice but to do in order to get themselves out their situation. God bless the Pacquiao family, man. I'm down to see how this story continues. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in once again, and I'm out. Toma!